Welcome to Straight Lines. I'm Tim Neiman. This is where life lessons meet leadership, where business gets a dugout seat, and where baseball gives us more than box scores. It gives us blueprints. Whether you're managing a team, building a brand, or just trying to lead yourself better, you're in the right place. Because here on Straight Lines, we believe the shortest distance between purpose and progress is truth, clarity, and actions. Let's get to it. Really pleased today to have a assistant coach at St. Joe's University, Mr. Doc Neiman. So let's get to some particulars out of the way in the beginning here. Yes, he has the same last name as I do. So I'm very proud of Doc, as my son, and he's doing a great job at St. Joe's. But we all know, I know, people that are close to the real name is not Doc. So if you want to, Doc, just kind of tell that story a little bit before we get going here.
Yeah, sure. First, and thanks for having me. And this is going to be fun and looking forward to it. So, real name is Darren, Deron, after Darren Johnson. Played for the Reds and Phillies back in the days, and kind of got Doc as a nickname from pretty much day one. Had a doctor's outfit that was given to me, and still have it to this day, actually. And had Baby Doc on it as the name tag, and just kind of has always stuck with me. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
It's pretty cool. So Darren, Deron, is the spelling, and Darren Johnson, I always felt like he was a pretty good player with the Phillies and never got the credit. First baseman, actually had 4 consecutive home runs, not in the same game. He had 1 the day before in a series, I forget who they were playing, and hit 3 the next day. So he had 4 at-bats in a row with 4 home runs. And the little surgeon suit was provided by a mentor of mine who's no longer with us. His name's Clyde Small. Clyde owned a minor league baseball team, had the Elmira Pioneers with the Boston Red Sox, moved it to Lowell, Massachusetts, and was basically a mentor of mine. And Clyde's father actually played a little bit with the Phillies in the big leagues. So that's kind of the evolution of the name. And Doc has stuck, and he's loved by everybody, family, of course, everybody around Doc. So let's start a little bit, Doc, with some of your background. Growing up, I went to Southern Lehigh High School, and let's kind of track through that if we can.
Yeah, graduated from Southern Lehigh in 2006. Enjoyed my time there. We had lucky to be a part of some really good ball clubs. Lifelong friends that I grew up with playing back from when we started, even when we were 9 and 10 years old. Put together a pretty good run in Little League, going to a state tournament, and most of us kind of stuck together throughout high school baseball as well, and had a really good run our senior year, losing in the state tournament eventually. But I think we racked off 24 straight wins, which was an awesome accomplishment, and one of the first teams from the school to make it to the state tournament. So had a really good coach, Coach Miller, who played some professional baseball in the Boston Red Sox organization, and really just kind of grouped us together, and we kind of bought into what we needed to do. And it was just a lot of fun being around those guys and enjoying playing baseball.
I sort of remember, let's go way back to like you're a little guy. I sort of remember a red wagon and the national anthem and like a 30-second game, and then you did it again. You remember that?
Yeah. Used to have some fun in the backyard. I guess it was better than playing video games and being inside. But yeah, I used to love going in the backyard and setting up a field and playing with the pitchback or throwing balls off the garage and hitting balls over the wash lines. I just enjoyed being outside and playing baseball, and I think that was a lot of fun, and just found my love for the game that way.
I remember the little flag stuck in the ground, and national anthem and all that kind of cool stuff. I'm like, man, this kid's crazier than I am. It was pretty cool.
Ready to play. Got to have the whole thing. I mean, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right.
You had everything. There's no question about that. And probably the cool thing about it, you did it solo for the most part. Once in a while I'd pop out and like, no, I'm going to let them go. This is pretty interesting. Had we all had cell phones with, the camera attached, it would have been some really cool video, from that time frame. But that was really cool. So after Southern Lehigh, where of course Little League, you had a great career, and then at Southern Lehigh with the All Stars, and you got to high school, and were very fortunate to play for Coach Todd Miller. He was really good friend of mine. And then what presented itself to you after high school, or the recruiting process, and how'd you end up playing for some guy at DeSales University?
Yeah, I mean, recruiting obviously is a lot different now than it was back then. I think I still have my VHS baseball factory recruiting tape that you really didn't want me to go to at the time, because I think I was only maybe like a sophomore, junior, and at that time, the recruiting process was pretty slow, and you just kind of went year by year. And obviously, you were very good about letting me kind of go my own route, and I think I had some interest in some other schools, and really the big thing for me was my grades, which I was not a super student. So for me to be in a smaller setting like DeSales, where I was able to get more assistance, more help in the classroom, and know that I was going to get a chance to play every day and contribute, I think that was just a really big push. And obviously playing for you, which was great. But, some of the other schools just, I wasn't sure if I was going to get some of that same help that I would have gotten or that I got DeSales.
Yeah, you weren't one that really liked school a whole lot. So, I mean, the funny part is Roseanne, my wife, and I have 4 kids, all have college degrees, and only one has a master's degree. It's this guy. Who would have thunk it? I still remember you asking me, what do I need to be eligible? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Really? But you hovered around there. You do what you got to do to get where you got to go, and you certainly did that. How about some memories, good and bad, if you remember, between the lines, teammates, whatever pops in your mind?
Yeah, I think the one that pops in is obviously winning a conference championship back in '08. Just a great time, obviously bonding together with those guys and doing what we wanted to do and accomplish, and winning a conference championship and getting to the NCAA regional, where we did fall short. But that's obviously the first thing. And, just the memories and the relationships that I've built. Still talk to a lot of guys I've played with, still kind of keep in touch throughout the holidays with those guys, and just kind of chatting up. And I think that's really important, things that happened on and off the field with us. And we had a lot of bonding, and, those guys are great. Bad times, well, that was usually when you yelled at me, or, I didn't perform very well, which did happen, and I took it and it was fine. But nothing that really sticks out in my mind. I mean, I dealt with some injuries that were really devastating, especially my senior year. I believe we beat Keene like first game of the year, and we're going down to Texas kind of riding high. And unfortunately, my first at bat, I got hit by a pitch and broke my thumb, and that just kind of really put a damper on me and probably the rest of the season for us as a squad. But that's probably really the one that sticks out. It's just tough break.
Hey, I remember that distinctly. I remember how upset you were. We had just only played 6 or 7 games probably by that point, and we were pretty good, but that was a major injury we had to overcome. But following up on that, you were a senior, I believe, at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and decided to take the medical red shirt and come back. What kind of walk us through that thought process a little?
Yeah, thankfully I had one of my advisors, if you want to call him, Father Daly, who was on the trip with us at the time. And I remember him kind of coming to the hotel room and said, hey, we got to go to breakfast tomorrow morning. We got to kind of hash this stuff out. And I really didn't have much time to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. Obviously, we were in Texas at the time, so I wasn't around any local doctors to kind of get the full diagnosis of how bad it was or anything like that. So had to make the decision pretty quick, and obviously wanted to play, wanted to give myself the best chance to move on or do whatever I had to do and just play baseball again. So, it was pretty much a no-brainer for me to take the medical red shirt and come back to school for one more year. And actually, I think I got my best grades that year because I only took one class. So that was also a plus for me.
The odds are pretty high for you at that time. Do you remember your overall career stats at all? Do you remember any of that stuff?
Vaguely, I was in like the 320s overall average. Um, I was a good base stealer. I know that I had a pretty high base stealing percentage, but I don't recall off the top of my head.
And you're a great catcher. So where did that start? The love to catch and like, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be. You know, kind of walk us through that.
Yeah, honestly, don't really know. I think probably just getting balls thrown at me by you and my brother in the backyard. But I always kind of just played everywhere. I played shortstop. I liked playing center field. I loved the pitch when I was younger. And I just kind of remember when we kind of transitioned to the Southern Lehigh area, kind of going behind the plate and just enjoying it, like putting the gear on, like being involved every play. And I think it just kind of stuck. And I was athletic enough that I was kind of a different kind of catcher. Used to say like Craig Biggio was a good resemblance and a guy that could bounce around a little bit. But just kind of stuck with it and went with it. And I remember going to pitcher catcher camps as a middle school, young high school, and catching some of the seniors and your guys at camp, and just kind of getting your nose behind it and fighting through some of the pain. But I enjoyed it. I loved it. And I wouldn't trade it for the world being back there.
Before we move on to the next segment, anything from those early days, the background, high school, college, we talk about straight lines, and the straighter the lines are, the more chance for success. You can learn more about straight lines in the tease and the promo that is out there on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, and on the website. So anything that maybe not what to do, or anything you looked at and said, you know what, that was pretty good. Those lines were straight. The grass was cut great. The lines were straight on the field. Anything that would pop to your mind there.
I think a lot of it is like you just said, like the lines on the field and enjoying going to the ballpark every day. And again, you think straight lines the quickest between 2 points, and I'll have to say, to get out of the classroom and go to the ballpark every day, I found the quickest way to get there. And that's something that again, that was the love for the game and that you instilled in us and that we grew up around, and that was something that even today, and we just talked about this today in the office actually with Coach Hamburg, my boss at St. Joe's, is how much we love going to that ball field every single day. And that was something, even when I was young, coming as a bat boy, you and I going to recruiting games and all that stuff. Like, it was just the love of always going around and being on the field and how fast could I get there. And that's what I wanted to do. So those things kind of, stick in mind when I hear straight lines and how I can get there.
Well, hopefully that feeling never goes away.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great feeling. Visiting here with Doc Neiman, assistant baseball coach at St. Joe's University, a talented up and coming young man that does a great job for the Hawks. The Hawks will never die. Well, we're going to talk more about St. Joe's specifically, and maybe Doc's vision for the future and how the Hawks are stacking up this year going forward. But first, how about this word from Baseball Blue Book? Since 1909, Baseball Blue Book has been the trusted directory for MLB scouts. And today it's grown into the most comprehensive platform in the game. But it's not just for players and coaches, it's for businesses too. Inside the Baseball Blue Book app, companies can create full profiles, promote their products or services, and even build private groups to connect directly with baseball players, parents, and coaches. Whether you're offering training, equipment, nutrition, or any service that touches the game, you now have a direct pipeline to the baseball community. Think of it as LinkedIn meets baseball, searchable, filterable, and open to everyone. No barriers, no gatekeeping. If your business wants to stand out, it's time to get in the book. Download Baseball Blue Book today from Apple or Google Play. Back here with Doc Neiman, St. Joe's University assistant coach. Doc, you mentioned Fritz Hamburg at the end of that first segment. Tell me more about Fritz. I've known Fritz myself for a long, long time, and we'll get him on this show as well in the future. First of all, a class act, a great guy, and a pretty darn good baseball coach. How's Fritz to work for? And, how do you guys work together? And, how do the Hawks for this year?
Skip, as we call him, is phenomenal. I'm very blessed to get the opportunity to come here. I'm going into season 3 now, which is crazy. I feel like I just got here last year already, but going to season 3, absolutely love working for him. Always learning from him. We have a lot of discussions in the office every single day. When it comes to baseball and just life in general, he's a great guy to sit down and talk to. Outside of baseball as well. But he's been phenomenal, and like you say, he's a tremendous baseball coach and winningest coach here at St. Joe's in his time going into year, I believe, 18 right now here on Hawk Hill. So he's been around, and we're continuing to build on what he's built so far, and it's something that we take a lot of pride in out on the field.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and I'm glad that things are working out there. But you've had a interesting path to St. Joe's for sure, and from being working in a full-time job somewhere outside of baseball to where you are today. Kind of take us through that. That was certainly interesting, and and basically, Doc, what got you into coaching? Why did you want to become a baseball coach?
Well, I think initially I didn't think I really wanted to. I got done playing, had the opportunity to kind of bounce around and do some other things outside. And, when I got done coaching, I knew the one thing I didn't want to do was come back and coach right away. And that was because I really didn't want to be around the guys I had played with, not because I didn't love them, but it's that connection's tough. You hang out with those guys 24/7. You know what happens off the field, and then you try to maybe lead them on the field. And being a young guy, I knew it just wasn't something I really wanted to do. So I did explore other options. I worked retail for a long time. I ended up working at a casino, and then I kind of got into a different path where I worked in juvenile justice. But that time away when I was working, at the casino and retail made me miss baseball. And I think that's what I needed. I was still coming to your games and doing some lessons on the side, but my love for it was a lot greater because I missed it and I knew I wanted to get back into it. So obviously I was able to still work and kind of come work with you and coach with you for a couple years. But that was really what got me back into it, and what made me say, like, I want to coach, is I just missed it.
So where do we go, though? We went from me first, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
for about 3 or 4 years.
Take us through that after that.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to work
working full time.
What's up? Yeah, I was
working full time.
Yes, working full time. Was lucky enough to work at IMG in some summers and kind of get my feet wet, kind of exploring outside of stuff. Was working full time while I was coaching with you. Working night shift at a juvenile detention facility, and then coming over and coaching baseball. Left you to go down to Erskine College, Division II school in Due West, South Carolina, for a really good friend of mine who got the head job. A kid that had grown up coming to your camps, that we grew up together. Had that opportunity, which was phenomenal. Was there for 1 year before meeting probably my best friend in baseball right now, Anthony Williams, who gave me an opportunity to be an assistant coach in the PSAC with him, for him to leave after 1 year to go take the head job at Frostburg State. And that's where, I got my first full-time paid job, and I was a head coach at Clarion University for 4 years and dealt with COVID, dealt with some really tough times out there. And then, like I said, now I'm going into year 3 here at St. Joe's, and it's been awesome so far.
Yeah, that's quite the journey, no doubt about it. And you've certainly paid your dues along the way. What kind of advice would you have for somebody that wants to follow a similar path?
Well, we don't like the word grind because I think
we do not.
If you're doing what you love, it's not a grind. But, one thing that we've always talked about in this game is, one, you got to work. You got to make connections. You got to be seen. You have to be personable and communicate with who you're working with. You have to be able to network. And that's super important in this game, because the more you can network, the more opportunities you have down the road. And, when I got the job at Clarion, I was at Erskine. I was working St. Joe's team camps, and that's where I met Anthony. And Anthony got me able to keep working there. And then had I not worked there and I'm guessing I did a good job to have Coach Hamburg come up and offer me a job. Like, those things would never have happened if I didn't do the things I needed to. So you have to be able to do those kind of things. I always say it's never for the money. Like you said, you got to pay your dues first. I was 30 or 31 years old before I ever got a full-time coaching job, and that was, 8 years into coaching college baseball, and that's super tough. 8 years I was a volunteer, just making ends meet, through lessons and camps and stuff like that. So I think don't ever do it for the money. Do it for the love of the game. Make those connections and just work and be seen. I think those are super, super important things for the young guys who are going out doing stuff right now.
Yeah, you and I always said you never knew who's watching, the players especially, and coaches, young coaches, and you and I talk about guys and Coach Hamburg, guys that work these team camps that kind of sit around, maybe don't engage with players or other coaches, maybe act like they're a little better than everybody else. I mean, those kinds of things don't fly very well. And, you get one chance to make a first impression, as a young coach. And you obviously made a great one with Coach Hamburg. Wanted to go back to Erskine for a second. Their head coach is Mark Crocco, who was involved a little bit with the Savannah Bananas, right? Didn't he do? What's the name of his team he had?
He was the Visitors. He was the no-name Visitors, where he got a chance to lead that this summer. And I talked to him actually just a week or two ago, and he absolutely loved it and enjoyed it. And but he's enjoying life and got a chance to be part of the Bananas little tour down there, which was awesome.
That just popped in my mind. I mean, Coach Crocker would be a great guest down the road as well. Any favorite? I mean, you're still carving out this nice career of yours. Any favorite moments as a coach, over the last decade?
I think a big thing, again, going back to is seeing these kids and making these relationships. We struggled out in Clarion for sure, but I got to see a lot of kids grow up, and you say this all the time. These kids come in as 18-year-olds and they leave as young adults, and you can see them mature. And I think for me, it's all about the relationships that we gain and seeing these kids grow up. And I've had many kids get married already and go on and start lives and families. And I think that's really cool. And when you get that text from them just saying, "Hey, Coach, how are things going?" Or had a bunch of guys, in the last years of being here, and a couple from Clarion that have gone on to professional baseball. We just had one of our draft guys last year just come back to campus today, finishing his first full season in Modesto, California, Ryan Piccolo, and just getting to catch up with him and hear what they see out there and those kind of things. Those things mean more to me. I had some cool wins along the way, and shout out to John Sheehan. I got to beat him twice at Millersville, but that wasn't me. That was our guys playing. I just kind of put the strategy together, but those guys had to play. So did have some cool wins, but the relationships and seeing our guys succeed, in pro ball and life, I think is a lot more important to me.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I've coached and I retired in 1,401 games I coached. And, people ask me, and I remember losses probably more than the wins, but I most remember all the guys. I mean, you could come up with and you could do the same. You mention a name and you could tell somebody all about that kid, all about that player, and usually mostly good, sometimes not so good, but but that's the relationships, and that's why coaches should be in the game. They should be in to forge those relationships, to become lifelong mentors, to help young coaches forge your own legacy, if you will. I mean, that's an important part of it. With Doc Neiman, St. Joe's baseball assistant coach, we have a lot more ground to cover. Quick little message for you. Talked about legacy. When the game is over, what will people remember about you? My book, What is Your Legacy?, challenges leaders, athletes, and everyday people to think beyond the scoreboard. It is about purpose, impact, and the mark you leave on others. If you're ready to find your legacy and live it with intention, this book will guide the way. Get your copy of What is Your Legacy today and start shaping the story Only You Can Tell, available at CoachNeiman.com and on Amazon. So now we got second part of this segment, the nuts and bolts and the nitty gritty, when some of this actually accelerated my departure from college baseball, because it's getting a little too muddy, if you will. There's so much more going on than there was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And it's accelerated with analytics, the data, NIL, you name it. There's a lot of changes that happen. So let's touch on some of those. How about any NCAA rule changes that kind of pop in your head that really have affected the game, good or bad?
Yeah, for us, I mean, this year in Division One, we had to drop our roster, so we went from a 40-man roster down to a 34-man roster. So 6 players is a pretty big cut. You're talking, a couple extra pitchers, a couple extra position guys, making it tough for us to figure out how we're going to scrimmage right now. You don't really have enough hitters to field 2 teams where in the years past we were able to have more. So that's been a big one for us right now, just trying to navigate how to even help some guys move on that were here in the past, that the roster was built on 40 and, hey, look, we don't see things working out, but we're going to help you get to your next step so you can play. That's been a big one for us that we're kind of still dealing with and kind of going forward. Obviously, the pitch clock has become big now into the game and in between innings, and they're pretty tough with it here, especially in Division One. I know it's kind of getting into Division Two and even Division Three now, more where it's being seen and you have to have the displays, etc. But that's the big one that kind of has stuck out for us this past year or so.
I actually don't mind the pitch count, pitch clock so much anymore. As broadcast Iron Pigs baseball, AAA, the affiliate of the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs and the Philadelphia Phillies. So I don't mind it so much. I do think it gets guys into the box. I was opposed to anything that was new and changes, but I don't mind that one so much as it is. Some of the other stuff, the big leagues, especially pro ball, guy on second base, for extra innings, that kind of stuff. No, thank you. If you don't know, St. Joe's University is part of the Atlantic 10. They're located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Head coach Fritz Amberg, assistant coach Doc Neiman, and you just hired a pitching coach, correct, Doc?
Yes, just hired Scott Bochis, who was spent the last 3 years at Lafayette and was in the Mariners organization for 6 years before that as a pitcher. Got all the way up to AAA, threw in some big league spring training games, and had a really good career as a local guy. Went to Archbishop Wood High School, so somewhat of a local kid, and played his college ball at Marist up in New York. So we're excited to have Scott. He's been great so far with our guys, kind of leading into what you have here as well about the data analytics. He's super great with that with our pitchers, but he's been a pleasure to work with so far in the 2-3 weeks he's been on campus.
Yeah, let's go through those analytics. You brought that up. A couple other, elephant in the room topics we'll get to next with NIL and the portal. But how has analytics changed the game from your standpoint, player coach, and also how do the Hawks implement, all the numbers that come down the pike?
I think it's been huge for multiple reasons. As you know, I was not a data guy. Numbers and me don't work too well together, but it is a big part of our game. And you're seeing it now even on Major League Baseball in college, and they have the velos and their launch angles. Do I personally get into it? I don't get into a whole lot with our hitters. We do some testing to kind of see baselines. We do some exit velos. We look at it. We are lucky enough to have TrackMan at our field and a portable one. So when we do some indoor stuff, we are able to get a lot of data as far as distance and exit velos and stuff like that. Working with catchers, today we actually just worked on velocities from behind the plate and working on our pop times and tag zones, and something that I dove into based off MLB data. So it's definitely in our game. I think how you utilize it and how you incorporate it to your guys, keeping it down to earth and allowing the guys who don't want it to not use it, which is fine. We use a lot of it when it comes to our recruiting, our scouting profiles when we're looking at other teams and how do we, manage our game plan around pitchers and stuff like that. So can we look at their pitches and their shapes and look at boxes and stuff? So it is there. It's a lot. So I would say it's probably bigger with our pitchers right now, allowing them to create their profile so they can be successful. Something that we used last year with Colton Book, who got drafted in the 9th round this past year by the Cubs. But it's definitely there. We use it where we need to use it for sure. I like it, but it's stuff that I have to keep learning, and it's it's a different language. That's what it really is.
It's always evolving too. Like it's never stationary.
Yeah.
You have the aware system with all the cameras, and then they've integrated into some other things. And, at some point there'll be a one-shop stop for everything you need. It's almost there, I would say. My one, I mean, and I know you have a lot of this in you as well. My way back on my, associate scout days with Pittsburgh and Milwaukee, we didn't have any of that stuff. We had the old ray gun, which was 3 miles an hour slower, than the guns today. We had stopwatches, and we had our eyes and ears and instincts. And I never thought I needed anything to tell me a guy has a slow bat or, a guy is top spinning balls or, the ball doesn't come out of the pitcher's hand. I mean, all those kind of guy can't run, obviously. All those kinds of things I kind of saw with a naked eye, as did everybody back in those days. But I have one recollection distinctly, and it's a young man that you and I both know that left us too soon, was Nick White. Nick was from Woodlands, Texas, and came up to play for me at DeSales. In fact, Doc, you're an integral part of getting him to come. So Nick would get around balls, and, they were merry-go-rounds off the bat, spinning, that way. And we have this garage down the left field line. And I finally said to him, I'd say, Nick, you're just killing the garage down there. The boards are getting knocked out. We're going to have to put another one up. So I went up, and it just dawned on me, what I see, he does not see. What I know, he does not know. And it dawned on me that players today learn from what they see, not what we tell them. They can go back to what we tell them and say, oh my, Coach Neiman was pretty smart, but till they see it, they don't comprehend. So I took Nick White up in the batting cage you're familiar with, and we had the Rapsodo on, and I showed him some data where the ball's spinning like a gyro, and like, okay, Nick, here's what it looks like coming off your bat, the stuff I see. And he goes, oh man, I didn't realize that. Yeah, that's why we need a new garage. You're killing it. So I said, so what do you think we need to do? And he said, well, we need to create some backspin. I said, that's right. If I throw a curveball, it spins over, 12-6. If I, throw a fastball, it spins backward, backspin. So we want to hit the baseball that way. And he made some adjustments, got his hand inside the ball, was an all-region player that season. And it got to the point, and you've arrived if you're a coach, when the player can give you feedback, on his own. All right, tell me what happened with that ball. I got my hands out in the round. But he had a hell of a career, hell of a season after that. And that's my recollection. And I'm like, oh, goodness gracious. That's just how they learn these days. And maybe I'm not ready for that anymore, but it kind of dawned on them. But the overall, and not only from a teaching standpoint, which I think is great, also, from them, from a coaching standpoint of how to implement the video with display charts and how to get people out and where to play them on the field and all that stuff. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, going back to your point too, I think we still use our eyes, our ears, and see those kind of things. I think you have to, because data can be deceiving. Data can show you one thing, but he could look completely different, or vice versa. And so we still use those. I think those are a big part, especially when we do get into recruiting, seeing guys. We don't have the TrackMan that we can take to Diamond Nation and set it all up. So we have to use a little bit of those instincts that we have and some feel. But to your point, yeah, I mean, we use video almost every single day with our hitters. We have tripods that they can set up their phones right in the cage with them. they can take film, so that way when they do come in to talk to me, it's like, okay, here's my last 3 days, what day felt good, what day doesn't feel good, what's the difference, right? So it does give them that instant feedback that they see, because sometimes it does just go in one ear and out the other when we are talking to them. And they got a lot of stuff going on, so we get that. But the video is super important. That's one thing that I love having. We have the Aware, like you mentioned as well. But the on your phone every single day BP swings, they're great for us. We do everything with that. But yeah, you got to have some feel still when you're still learning those kind of things with those guys.
We're going to talk about name, image, and likeness in the transfer portal in just a second. But I wanted to ask you, Doc, short answer, because this will be part of the bigger prospect here. How important is team chemistry, for a winning club? I mean, I see it in the big leagues, and I'm on some radio shows where they ask me what my thoughts are going into playoffs. And I started eliminating some ball clubs because I'm not seeing, that willing to sacrifice, and, not literally, figuratively too, I guess, but, to sacrifice their selfishness, in order for the team to win. I think the Phillies are a good example of right now. It's amazing how things change as the season goes, but they're willing to win. I look at a club like the Padres or the Mets, I don't see it. And the Padres have a heck of a roster. So real briefly, how important is chemistry, to a winning ball club?
I think it's important. I think finding the right fits for kids that come in, especially like you said with the portal the way it is. And I know we'll get into that, but you got to find the right kids who fit well and want to be coachable, want to be where they are at that school. But you also hear stories where the culture's crap and they find a way to keep winning. So I'm not really sure. I think talent sometimes overtakes it a little bit at certain levels. Again, kind of going into what you have here with the NIL and all that. But, we're big on team chemistry. To answer your question, we want the kids who want to be there, who are coachable, who are good kids, and blend well together, in the clubhouse.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to coach it. I don't know what the formula is, but I know it when I see it. And I think you do too.
Yeah.
And I think we both know when we don't see it. And, sometimes issues can be traced to just that sort of thing. And I think an example where the coach wasn't so hot, the kids probably stuck together. Their chemistry was good, in spite of, sometimes they win in spite of us, right? But probably more often than not. What we don't want is team killers. We certainly want any team killers. And in every workplace and every team, there are unseen forces that can derail success. In my book, Team Killers, I uncover the behaviors, attitudes, and habits that destroy team chemistry and show you how to build a winning culture instead. If you're a leader, coach, or teammate who wants lasting success, this book is your playbook. Get your copy of Team Killers today and protect your team from the inside out. Also available, CoachNeiman.com and Amazon. All right, here we go. NIL in the portal. And I know, just talking to you over the course of the summer and the season, how it affects, the mid-major St. Joe's and how things trickle down from the top to the bottom and how you need to strategize and reload the Hawks. So, please have at it with both of those aspects. And we'll finish out this second segment.
Well, NIL, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, us personally, we have zero. I don't think we have any NIL money at St. Joe's. So we are strictly going off of, our academic merit and our scholarship money that we have to hand out. But you see, obviously the Power Fours are big time, getting money. And we just had one of our grad students go to Virginia Tech and another guy go on to ECU and transfer out. And we had some guys go last year in the portal. And I'm sure they got paid a little bit. And if that's kind of what they're chasing, those bigger baseball opportunities and the money, I don't know if you can blame a kid either. When people are offering them $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 as a 21-year-old plus their school covered, can you really blame a kid for going? I don't know. But for us personally, it's it has affected us a little bit. Where the kids have gone on to bigger schools, have probably gotten some NIL money along the way, and then it goes into that portal where we have to go in there and going back to your last point, finding the right fits of kids who have experienced different things. Lucky for us, we hit the portal pretty hard this year, and I think we got pretty lucky and love the kids we got in. We have a lot of Power 4 kickbacks. So kids who had gone on to these big schools, the bells and whistles maybe, got some money and didn't perform and didn't pitch or didn't play. And now they want to play. And we were able to kind of get them on board to what we're doing here. And, we're super excited for the guys we got, but it definitely takes a toll on us.
Where's the high school kid fit in now? What do you look for at St. Joe's, and any advice for the recruiting counters pushed way up, obviously. So I mean, the 2026 class is long gone, especially at your level. What advice you got for the 25s, the 27s, going backwards, the 27s, the 28s, and down the line? What can you tell them?
I'd say be patient and just keep doing, keep getting yourself seen and exposed and communicating. We've talked a lot, and you always said this too, is if you're interested in a school, go to their prospect camps, because you get a feel for, kind of the atmosphere and the surroundings. And, a lot of times you get 50 kids that come to camp and they say, yeah, I really can see myself going to St. Joe's. And as much as they're, they want to come there, we have our needs and wants and fits that we need to fill, and we can't take everybody. But, I think the classes are going to be a lot smaller going forward. Last year we brought in 15 freshmen. This year we have, I think, 5 or 6. We currently have 5 26s committed, maybe looking for another arm, maybe a position guy that really sticks out. But, we're also banking on our current guys to stay here. And sometimes those guys go in the portal and you have to make some quicker decisions. So high school kids keep doing it. And when you go to these, you have to wow us. You got to do something that's going to stick out and say, you know what, that kid can play, or we need to follow that kid. But things have definitely gone a lot slower. We have 0 offers out right now to 2027s just because we don't know where we're going to be. We've talked to a bunch. We're interested in a bunch. We have some coming to our prospect camp to see again, but we currently have zero offers, and we're okay with that, because we're probably going to have to refill in the portal next summer again before we get into those guys. So it's kind of just been a revolving door for us personally.
Yeah, it's made it tough with the portal, especially in NIL. Kind of works top down. They rate them in majors. The mid-majors, you find guys that fit and it goes to Division II, even in a Division III, and it's quite the unnatural cycle right now that's going on. Visiting here with Doc Neiman, assistant coach at St. Joe's University. I know Doc's in the Baseball Blue Book. Baseball Blue Book has been the game's trusted directory since 1909, and now it's where businesses connect directly with players, parents, and coaches. Create a profile, promote your services, and join the community. Download the Baseball Blue Book app today on Apple or Google Play and follow along with me inside the app in my Straight Lines group. The link will be in the episode description. So we're going to kind of move forward here and kind of look to the future. My retirement had made me look into the future, and here I am talking to you, as I'll talk to many, many super terrific guests on the program. So I'm excited about that. We always have to have something to do, but your future is still bright between the lines. And, what's next for Doc Neiman?
Don't know. It's a great question. Obviously have dreams of moving on and moving up, and, hopefully maybe get a chance to go in the pro ball someday. And as a catching guy, that would be probably my end and dream goal. But honestly, going forward right now, I'm looking to win an A10 championship. That's what we want to do right now. So been focused really on where I'm at right now, and I think that's something even Coach Hamburg talks about is be where your feet are. And staying focused right now on where I am at St. Joe's, where I'm super happy. But if I had to have a goal, would try to get myself into pro ball at some point and see what I could do in that game.
Well, you'd be a tremendous asset. Talked to you about that before, and different lifestyle, but you don't have any NIL. Somebody else takes care of that. No portal. It's called free agency.
Yeah.
So you don't really have to deal with that. I mean, you can just go coach, which is kind of the nice part of that. And again, it's another avenue that, may be there for you. But Coach Hamburg and the entire staff and everybody at St. Joe's and all your players deserve a 100% of Doc Neiman. And I know 100% of Doc Neiman is pretty darn good. And that's exactly what you should be doing. And you never know what pops up down the road. Things just happen, and life happens, and you evaluate decisions and you go on from there. Talked a little bit about advice for future coaches. Anything else that pops in your head that would make sense? We're going to talk a little straight lines in a second, but anything else that might pop into your head for coaches that want to be in it for long term, that want to be where their feet are?
Yeah. No, I mean, again, I think networking is huge. If you are interested, or you're a high school coach looking to bump up, I definitely recommend going to the ABCA. It's one of my favorite times of the year. I've been going probably for the last 5 or 6 years now. One, it allows me to reconnect with so many of the coaches that I've made over the years, and coaches that I don't even have true big relationships with, either from our A10 conference or coaches I've coached at the PSAC, and you just reconnect, and you're all there for the same reason, to learn something. And I think that's the big thing, is always be open to learning. Have a notebook every year that I go to the ABCA. Every time I listen to podcasts, I take notes and put them into this, because I think, for us, just like players, they should be always learning. We have to always constantly be learning. So if you're not an ABCA member, I would highly recommend young coaches to get involved with that. Go network, have resumes, ready to hand out. Try to get into podcast groups and stuff like that, where you can, again, just network yourself. But you got to be open, and you got to be willing to learn, and you got to be able to communicate and kind of go about stuff that way.
The ABCA, if you're not sure what that is the American Baseball Coaches Association, the largest coaches association in the world. And their convention this year is in Columbus, Ohio. And they have people literally coming from all over the world. I think you could spend an entire day, as you know, just in the vendor area, hundreds of vendors with all the newest tech and equipment and uniforms. I mean, it's fun to walk around the exhibit hall, big time. And then they have just a great lineup of speakers. I was fortunate enough to do it in 2021. Unfortunately, it was COVID. So, but it was a great time, and nobody does it better. And they put a lot of effort into that. It's highly recommended. That's great advice, Doc. And people should know. And you don't have to be a coach to join either, by the way. You can be whatever you want. All right. So the last several minutes here, we're going to talk some straight lines. All right. And this can go wherever you want. So I'll give you an example, and where this all started. As I thought about things, I was a third base coach for the Allentown Ambassadors, and we were in Lynn, Massachusetts, playing the North Shore Spirit in the old Can-Am League. I was a third base coach. Rich Gedman was the manager for North Shore Spirit, pretty good big league catcher with Boston. But it had rained the night before. Ed Ott was our manager, and I were always there early with Ed. And I'm sitting in the first base grandstand and just kind of watching and observing until we had to get dressed to be on the field. And it rained the night before, so a lot of staff out there wiping down the seats and just making things presentable. There's also a guy that, was very professional looking, and I'm thinking to myself, he's doing the same thing, by the way, wiping down seats. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no way this guy's selling popcorn. You're not going to go buy beer from him, in the fifth inning. There's no way. So I get up and start walking across the field. Locker rooms were left center field. And he starts walking with me. And I said, I just got to tell you, the managing perception is a big deal to me and should be for everybody, what people perceive it. And I said, I got to tell you how impressed I am with how the preparation is going, that you care about your customers. And he said, I got to tell you, he said, I've never heard that from anybody. And I said, I really appreciate it. Stuck his hand out to me, and he was the owner of the North Shore Spirit. And I'm like, okay, that's straight lines. You know, the straight lines, the grass cut, and the lines on the field. I always love that stuff. But metaphorically, that's a straight line. That guy, he was unbelievable. So, kind of my example, anything like that would pop out to you, where like, doesn't have to be baseball, not at all. It can be anything that, might sink into your head. And, I've got other examples too if you get stuck. But, interesting to see if you've ever noticed anything like that.
It's a great question. Nothing that pops into my head right now.
Or Doc, things that are going straight, things that are in line, they're linear. We're getting from, could be practice or games, or we go from X to Y to Z, or A to B to C. Everything's lined up. But I think the purpose of all this, you'll probably start seeing some of this like, oh my goodness, that's atrocious. We could do this better. We could do this better. So I don't know if that helps you.
Yeah, I think about it. You think about kind of tying this all together, like you're talking about, like, and there's on the sheet here, it talks about like what not to do and things that don't line up, kind of like what you're saying. And I think I'm going to tie this into being young coaches. Sometimes you do learn when you're out coaching or you're at your different stops, certain things that you shouldn't do, or maybe that don't fall and you don't truly believe in. And that's okay. And I think that's something that, that you take pride in as a coach. And for example, I love development. I've always loved it. It's something that you instilled with us. We were always in the backyard playing, learning, and that's something that I want to do. I want to be on the field developing and teaching. And there's some places and there's some coaches that, are bigger and look at the big bright lights, and they're not finding those details, like you said, the ABC getting in line. And, just thinking it off in my head right now, we worked on catching progressions today. But how do we get to our end spot? We got to go through these little things to get there. And again, there's going to be times where you're faced with, you don't truly believe in those certain things, and you're going to have to put a smile on and back up your head coach, and because that's what you have to do. But in your heart, that's not what you believe in. And sometimes it calls for some tough discussions too with a boss or, something else. And, that's part of growing up and being mature, whether you're on the baseball field or in the working world. You're going to have those decisions, and you're going to have to hash it out and get on the same page, because as you mentioned earlier, you never know who's watching. If you're in the workforce, you have people watching you. You have kids watching you on the field. You have kids watching you elsewhere. So I think those things are kind of important. That's the kind of thing that sticks out in my mind a little bit.
No, that's great. That's exactly what, I'm looking for. Those are great examples. Having a robust dialogue without people getting upset if there's a disagreement, which is a lot of what's wrong in the world right now these days. We don't agree. It doesn't mean I don't like you. Let's just talk about it and come to common ground. And, that's politics and life in general, relationships, and definitely, in the sports world, between a relationship of the head coach and the assistant coaches. And you're right. Sometimes you bite the bullet, but a good, healthy environment like Coach Hamburg provides, he wouldn't be upset if you're disagreeing with him, and it'll make him think about what's next. Those are terrific straight lines. That's exactly right. Great examples. I'll give you something else. I go to my mom's quite frequently. She likes, maybe this will get you in another perspective. She likes milkshakes, black and white shakes. So I went to this, I'm not going to dime out the fast food establishment, but went there 3 consecutive weeks, Sunday afternoons. First time, want a black and white shake. Oh, we don't have the milkshake mix. Okay, so there's no milkshake today. Second time I go, yeah, we got milkshakes. I said, all right, 3 black and white shakes. Need 3. They got the 3 milkshakes. And any chance you got a carrier? Am I just going to spill them all over the floor? We don't have any carriers. third week I go, the milkshake machine doesn't work. Same place, same spot, 3 different occurrences. Those are not straight lines. So the point is as you pointed out, details, the details and the little things. To me, that's an example of some systemic problem that will probably doom them in the future. That looks to me like something, that place could be out of business sooner or later, because those little things like that lead up to much bigger problems. And that group didn't, that was sad. But again, I'm not diming them out. Their location probably is sustaining them at this point. But that's another example of those lines aren't straight. What could we do as opposed to another fast food established? Not that I'm living at these fast food places, by the way, but it's like clockwork. You come in, they have somebody standing there, you get your order, you pay for the order, they say thank you, they're smiling, have a great day, and around you go, and somebody comes out and, are you Coach Neiman? Black sedan, here you go. Those are straight lines, and I'm going to try to get one of their higher ups on the show one day. That's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm thinking about. So anything that might pop in your head on that kind of a ground as an example, no problem if not. But
yeah, I think you said attention to detail, and that's a big thing. And it goes back to even like with players, like we have to be attention to detail on the little things on practice, right? Like when we're going through practice, if it says we need a bucket at first and second and third, and someone doesn't put a bucket out, we can't do a drill, right? So our lines aren't straight. They're not lined up. We can't do that drill, right? So, and kids don't understand it sometimes. It takes them maybe a year or two. They come in as freshmen. They don't understand. And then, as they get older, they start realizing, okay, here's a great example that sticks in my mind. Nolan, who was, my older brother who coached with you and coached me for 2 years. We used to have blue hat, blue shirt, red belt, red socks, for practice. And he would always mix it up. But if you didn't have that on, you went and got changed and you conditioned a little bit extra that day. But it's attention to detail. It doesn't take much. It's not hard. You have to read the text message or the practice plan. But there's usually something in there, right, that is going to make these boys lock in. And I think that's super important for anything that we do, is just pay attention to details.
That's great stuff. We're finishing up here with Doc Neiman, assistant baseball coach at St. Joseph's University. The Hawk will never die because of guys like Coach Doc and Coach Hamburg at St. Joe's, wishing them the best all year here in the 2026 season. We thank you for joining me on Straight Lines with Tim Neiman, where leadership lessons meet the game of baseball. Remember, leadership is about drawing straight lines even when life throws us curveballs. If you enjoyed today's show, share it with a teammate, subscribe, and connect with me on social media for more insights. And if you want to dive deeper, check out the 2 books, Team Killers and What is Your Legacy? Until next time, lead with clarity, play with purpose, and keep those lines straight. Doc, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.